Hello and welcome along to another episode of our Stadium Review series, Review the 92. Each week, myself and co-host Tom go for a ground in the English 92. And we almost weren't doing today's episode, but we are going to do the usual and rank it on certain areas. And of course, give you our overall score. So today, the reason it's such a tense one is because it is Broadhall Way, the Lamex Stadium. Stevenage is the main word. And they have just survived last week. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been doing this episode. But they didn't survive on the pitch. They relied on points deductions from others. So it was very close. And the EFL's name is in the mud again. What a surprise. So if you are looking forward to this one, please do chuck a thumbs up on it. Subscribe for a new episode from this every week, as well as daily FM20 videos, as I take you through the stats of Broadhall Way / the Lamex Stadium before getting Tom's opinion on the day. So first and foremost, and this is the bit that surprised me the most, Tom, built and opened in 1961, one of the most modern stadiums in the series so far. It was expanded in 2001, which was obviously shortly followed by their emergence into the Football League. And it has a capacity now of 7,800 people. However, the record attendance in the late 90s was over 8,000. And the reason for that is because for an FA Cup game, they had to make sure that they had a temporary stand in place because it was before the ground had been expanded.
Do you know who that was against?
That was against Newcastle United in January 1998. It was 8,040 overall, which was a sellout that day.
Newcastle went on to the final that year, I think.
I think you might be right, actually, yeah.
Then Arsenal beat them in the final. Yeah.
You know the top of football better than me.
Shearer always gets roasted, doesn't he, by Lineker about never winning the FA Cup. And I think...
Was that his closest one, was it?
I think he got to a couple of finals and that might have been one of them. So, yeah, they'd have had a big support. So, 8,000.
But let's talk about the day itself. We went in 2014 together to watch Luton. I think it was, depending on whether it was before or after Cambridge, I think it was before the first game that we went to away from home when Luton came back into the Football League. It was obviously a very high attendance. Luton sold out their allocation of nearly 2,000, despite the ticket prices, which we'll get onto later. So what are your initial memories of the day itself?
I didn't have a lot of experience going to away games back then. That was one of the first, like you said. I think a lot of Luton fans would argue that it's a derby because they'd like to think Luton are much bigger than Stevenage, and Stevenage were never really on Luton's radar. But for our generation, who have known Luton in the non-league for a relatively big chunk of our time following Luton, and down the same leagues as Stevenage, and Stevenage actually won promotion, didn't they? From the conference when we were in there with them. So yeah, we were in the same kind of league and even below Stevenage for quite a lot of the time. So we had to kind of, relatively speaking, accept the fact that they were a local team in the same divisions as we were.
Yeah. And
that meant it was quite exciting to go away to the likes of Cambridge and Stevenage, the local away games, and have a sold out allocation. And it was I enjoyed the day out. A late winner, am I right in saying we got a late winner? So
it was in the spell where Pelly Ruddock was playing off the left wing and having a blinder for a little while.
God, shows you how long Pelly's been at the club.
Was it Alex Wall as well that day? Am I right in thinking that?
Let me get that. We'll wait for atmosphere, Alex. Because there's the chant that I'll never forget. I love that day. So yeah, I enjoyed it. Obviously, a late winner away at your local rivals of sorts is perfect, isn't it? It's what football's about. Can't ask for any more than that.
I couldn't argue with any of that. I mean, for me, I think I went once as a very young person in the home end at about age 6 or 7 when they were in non-league. No idea why. No idea how I ended up there, but I was definitely there. And that was the first trip afterwards when they were obviously a Football League team. You mentioned the weird dynamic between the clubs. Obviously, historically, Luton massive in comparison to Stevenage, but as you mentioned, the first year we were in non-league, Stevenage got promoted. They then went up to League One and then got into the League One playoffs. And we were sitting there watching in the National League. And basically, this was our meeting in the middle, wasn't it? So it's all worked out in the end.
Yeah, now let's just say one thing on record. Next season, Luton are back having Watford in their division as their actual real arch nemesis, not the likes of Cambridge and Stevenage.
So let's move on to atmosphere, as you mentioned. Of course, it's a local derby. It's hard to judge it on anything else. I would imagine there wouldn't be the same atmosphere at Broadhall Way, Lamex Stadium, for most other games. It's actually the third highest league attendance ever recorded at the time at the ground. So it shows you just how big a game. Third ever biggest league attendance at the ground. So obviously there's
Right.
a few FA Cup ties that were bigger, but in the league that was in the top three.
Yeah. Wow.
So there was obviously a sellout in the away end. It was an all-ticket game, so usually clubs like Stevenage would have turnstiles on the day, but they couldn't do that for this one. So that probably cost them a little bit in terms of home attendance. The one thing I remember from the atmosphere, aside from it being very good, and obviously Luton being jubilant towards the end, was we were quite close to the right-hand corner with the corner for the for the home fans, sorry. And all I remember was home fans fighting with each other the whole way through it. I don't know if Luton fans had snuck in or whatever, but
Yeah,
it just looked like home fans fighting with each other.
getting removed in the first
Yeah,
20 minutes. People getting taken out the ground, weren't they? Yeah.
Mm.
I think I said it last week about Southend, like Luton fans just giving them stickers, like you're really West Ham fans, but you've just come out today. And I think Stevenage get accused of being, I don't know, one of the North London clubs, Spurs, Arsenal, take your pick.
Well, they've got a Spurs club shop in the shopping centre, so.
And I think Spurs women's team play at Stevenage. So yeah, I think again they get accused, like maybe they're not really big Stevenage fans, but they've come out because they thought Luton are in town and they played up a little bit. And yeah, there was some of that, wasn't there? Yeah. And I do think I remember after the game there were people cheering in the home end, like
yeah.
now we can come out. We're Luton fans as well, and like we were all celebrating together. So there were Luton fans in the home end. I don't know if that instigated any trouble.
Yeah, I mean, it probably did. But otherwise, I think, to be fair, it was a pretty good atmosphere for the game. And I know we can judge it on other ones, but it was a derby. It was a great atmosphere. And it's the sort of games as a football fan that you get excited for, aren't it?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's great. Yeah, I said what I had to say. It's a last-minute away win at a local rival that it sticks fondly in the memory for me. Great day out. Easy to get home as well afterwards. Very good.
Well, that's it for us. It's a very easy trip. But I guess before we finish off on atmosphere, I guess you've got the chant from the late goal, so that's going to bear into your thoughts as well, because it's probably one of Alex Wall's only good moments for Luton. He's now playing down at Hemel Hempstead round the corner from us. I think he might be moving on from there, actually. But that was probably his crowning moment for Luton.
Yep. Don't want to do a rendition, but you get the picture. To the tune of Wonderwall. And after all, you're my Alex Wall. And serenading him after he scored a winner. It's just, I thought that was quite imaginative by the away end. And yeah, the atmosphere is good all day. Yeah. So I'm going to give it a 9, I think, for atmosphere. I'm going to go straight in with a 9.
Yeah, I mean, I was sort of torn between 8 and 9 because I guess for Stevenage, as you mentioned, it is what they would probably say as their big local derby at the time. And based on that, I'm thinking, was it completely raucous in the home end? And while it was very good, I don't know if it was completely raucous. And for me, I'm thinking if that's their biggest game, their biggest league game probably of the decade or one of, is that going to be fair to give it a 9 just because on that day it was pretty good? So I'm going to go a little lower and a little more conservative and give an 8.
Yeah, you make a fair point. I'm basing my decision largely on where we were in amongst the away fans. And then I've just got the image in my head looking to the right. And at the end of the game, like Luton fans in there and we're celebrating. It was just like, yeah, like you said, the right word is jubilant. It was just an outpouring of like, yeah, we did it, ecstatic. And
we're back. We're better than Stevenage again.
Yeah, which at the time was a big thing. But now it's like, God, we had low standards, didn't we, back then?
We were just happy to be back. But let's move on to location. Because as you mentioned, the benefit of a local derby, particularly one at a slightly smaller level where there's not a huge load of trouble and people getting kept behind for hours afterwards, is that you get home pretty quickly. Now, for you, whenever you come back down to visit our home, you have to take the bus from Stevenage to Luton off the train. And it is a nice, fairly short one, fairly direct one, and you don't lose much of your day. So I think location has to be a positive, but we do have to bear in mind that for those travelling away from other areas, how far is it from the train station? It's about a mile. But there's also, on the bus stands outside the train station, there's a print of the matchday special bus routes, which is something that immediately draws the eye. So for me, that's a real positive for Stevenage. They put on special buses on match day. They're well advertised from the train station. That's got to be a positive as well.
Yeah, and as I said, our experience is obviously going from Luton, which is only, 15 miles, not even that. So it's a local bus for us. But I imagine if you are coming from further afield, obviously, say a Plymouth, it's only half an hour from London. It should be straightforward to get there. I didn't know about the maps and the bus stops outside. That's a good thing to do. So, I don't think you should knock it down too much for location.
No, I think location is one of its selling points. The only thing I would say is it's at the longer end of walking distance from the ground for the train station. So for that, I will rank it down slightly. But otherwise, for us as Luton fans, who at the time were in Luton, that is a very easy thing. So I think I have to give it an 8 again.
Yeah, I do remember the walk being quite long, and a lot of Stevenage isn't very nice. And they might say you got some cheek saying that when you're from Luton, which is fair enough. But yeah,
Some of it's lovely and some of it's
the
like
old
Luton,
town's,
isn't it? Yeah.
the old town's really nice.
Yeah,
But yeah, a lot of Stevenage isn't picturesque. I'm going to give it a 7, I think.
Fair enough. So we're making up for each other. We've got to the same score overall at the moment. But this is where it probably goes wrong. So we're going to move on to value. Now, you can get cheaper tickets in the home end because it's based on what stand you're in and all those sorts of things and whereabouts you are. But in the away end at Stevenage, and I've taken the 2014 figures and the 2018 figures, both for Luton games away from home. Adult ticket prices. Are you ready for this one? Because we were in a terrace. £24. Now, I know it's a fairly affluent part of the country, Hertfordshire, and it's near London and it's in the south. But 24 for a terrace, I'm going to stick my neck on the line and say I think that's probably the most I've ever paid for a terrace.
Could well be, because most of them probably were non-league, weren't they? Yeah, I was at Exeter last year. I don't know how much I paid for that. But that is dear. It's not good.
Well, I complained about £20 for Accrington. Now, I appreciate there wasn't a cover there, which is something you get the luxury of at Stevenage.
We did get rained on, to be fair, at Accrington.
But, I mean, even the concessions are £21 at Stevenage there. I mean, it's excessive, I would argue.
And that was 6 years ago in League Two.
6 years ago in League Two. It hasn't changed 2 years ago at the same level, but...
Oh, how harsh are we going to be then?
You go first on this one, I'm afraid.
Oh.
Well, that's the reason I wanted to let you go first, because I am normally known for being the generous man here. However, on this occasion, I'm going to bring out the lowest score of the series, which I will make no apologies for, because it's £24 for a terrace at the bottom of League Two. And it's not just the Luton game. Some of the others have been that price as well. So for me, I'm going to have to go one lower. I'm going to have to give it a 3. I haven't got an alternative. £24 for a League Two terrace should not be acceptable. I'm sorry, £20 is your limit. That's my opinion.
Point well made.
Moving on to the final one, which is character. Now, this is a bit hard because it's a fairly modern ground in comparison to some of the others. It's been expanded in the 2000s. It's quite a nice ground. It's particularly good for the level. It's good for the area. However, I wouldn't say it's got anything special. So at the risk of being unfair to a fairly local club, it's probably not anywhere near my top 10 or 20.
No, it's quite, like I said, he said it was refurbished in 2001. It's fairly modern.
You can tell that in the stands. The seating's fairly modern. And it looks
relatively new. Yeah. It's not awful, but I'd say at the same time, it's easily forgettable.
Yes.
Obviously, I'd imagine the fact, I don't know, you might say, well, I don't know if my point makes any sense here, but the fact Tottenham have chosen that as their local smaller ground to use as their, I think, is it their development team or their women's team? One or the other.
I'm sure the women's team used to play there, but I think more of the games are at the bigger grounds now.
So I think that's just that quite a good level. Character-wise, nothing, I can't even picture how it looks from the outside, really. So, yeah, one of those ones that you say does the job, but doesn't stick in the memory, easily forgettable.
Yeah, I mean, apart from the main stand, I don't think the outside's really been refurbished hugely. I mean, it's been touched up, but I think most of the changes, the seating in the stands, it's a lot more modern once you're in the ground. And it's a good ground for their level, and it's a good ground for the club and for the area, but it's not special in terms of character, is it really?
Not at all. No, I'll give it a 6, I suppose.
Yeah, so that's the same as I was going to go for. I'm wrestling between 5 and 6, but it's nicely polished and it's a nice enough ground. So 6 for me.
I was going to go 5, but then I've just been accused of being the harsh one, so I thought I'd be a bit more lenient this time.
Well, if you add up our overall scores in the series, you are a little bit harsher than me, I'm afraid. So I will stick by that point. However, I'm happy to be proven wrong. If anyone's been to Stevenage and there's anything you remember that's very positive or unique about the character, because we may have just missed it. However, I don't think it's one of our top grounds, but it is still a decent place to go and watch football, just a little bit excessive in terms of price.
Yeah, that's fair to say. Have Luton and Stevenage not been in the same division that often then if it's only 2014 and 18?
So I presume the years in between we were, because Stevenage yanked them down. But I just picked the earliest and the latest year we were in the same division. So.
All right, yeah.
So our overall scores will be in the bottom. I'd be interested to know for other lower league fans who are coming from further afield how your trip is to Stevenage, how you found the routes, because obviously it's one of the most infamously unreliable train services that we have in our part of the country. So I'd be interested to see people's thoughts on that. And of course, what you made of the ground as well, considering the other ones in the area, like Kenilworth Road, which is probably falling apart a bit more, in fairness. So if you did enjoy...
got a lot more character.
But it has got a lot more character.
You won't forget Kenilworth Road, yeah.
You will never forget the entrance to the away end for that one, as is proven every week on YouTube. So if you did enjoy this episode, please do put a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to the channel for a new episode every week. Probably one of my favourites in the series coming up next week, if I've done my alphabet right this time. And I'm sure Tom will be nodding along because he will agree as well.
Almost wearing their colours.
Almost wearing Stevenage's colours this week, more regrettably. Thank you very much for watching as always. Thank you to my co-host Tom for joining me.
Cheers.
And hopefully we'll see you next time.